The Rise Today Inspirational Podcast is brought to you by two relentless health warriors, Dr. Erica Harris, an empowered mindset health expert who is the passionate founder of RiseToday.com, and Megan Hubner, an entrepreneurial marketing strategist and founder of Hubner Marketing. These two inspirational forces have truly thrived through adversity and are here to empower you to do the same. Together, they serve to open up the conversation about hardship and to move you to greatness through your adversities. Learn more at risetoday.com/podcast. Now, let's get started. Let's rise today, right here, right now.
It's a good day.
Welcome, everyone. We are so happy to have you here with us today. Incredibly excited to share with you our first official guest. We are grateful for the opportunity to get to be here today, to teach you, to share with you, to allow us all to dive deep and explore the incredible power that lies within the story that each and every one of us have, the power that lies within our heart. And today is such a great day to make it a great day.
It sure is, Megan. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Thrivers, and welcome back. We are so excited to have you here and to get going with today's show and with today's burst of inspiration. I am so excited to welcome our first guest today. This show has a big spot in my heart today for lots of reasons, but as Megan and I were sharing in the first two shows where we interviewed each other to try to share our mission with you, our listeners, and why we're doing this show and why we're moving forward. As we said then, we are really trying to culture empowered mindsets to take on adversity and to thrive through adversity and to use adversity to best serve us. And our guest today is a shining example of just that. You are going to be left aghast when you hear this story. And I will introduce her. Her name is Jill Wheatley, and we are just so excited to have her here with us today. I'll give you a little background. She and I actually grew up together back home in Northern Ontario. Now, I often share with the world the grit and the heart that comes from that little town in Northern Ontario. And so today we're going to be shining that forth on our show moving forward. And Jill is a survivor of a traumatic brain injury. Just wait till you hear her story. And she has used all of this adversity now to climb her all the way up to the highest of mountain peaks all over the world. And she lives in the moment of right now, as we all should be doing. So let's hear a little bit more about her and about where she is right now. Welcome, Jill. We're so excited to have you with us. Tell us, where in the world are you now?
Thank you so much, both of you, for that really warm welcome. I am sitting in Kathmandu in Nepal. I am currently in an apartment. The country is on lockdown, so I'm not in the mountains as I usually am, but I'm healthy and I'm happy to be here. There's nowhere else in the world that I'd rather be right now than here in Nepal.
That sounds amazing, Jill. So take us back a bit. Now, I know a bit more about your story, just having followed you on Facebook and reading a bunch of these incredible articles that have been written about you in the Globe and Mail and other pursuits, other avenues. But tell us, take our listeners back to that day. Now, I know you were serving our great world as a phys ed teacher and sharing your love of fitness and movement and exercise with this younger generation. And tell us about this day when you had your phys ed class out. I believe you were in Germany. Is that right? Serving
Yes.
as a phys ed teacher there. Now tell us about this, please.
Sure. So it was just like any other Wednesday, early September. It was about the second or third week of school, so still lots of energy. It was a overcast morning, a bit rainy on a Wednesday. And my colleagues, who were also phys ed teachers as well, had decided to keep their students inside for the lessons. I decided, or I prefer to be outside, so just get a good jacket and get outside. So we did, these were 10th graders, so about 15, 16-year-olds at an international school. So these students were from all over the world. And it was our first lesson actually using baseball bats. So we had a number of introductory lessons, and the kids were super stoked to actually get to start using the bats that day. So the day started just like any other, and then that changed in an instant.
So tell us about that moment, Jill. How did your day change in that instant? How was everything ripped away in that blink of an eye?
Literally the blink of an eye. I like your play on words.
I know you're starting.
I can laugh about it now. Yeah, no, I like that. So basically my 21 students had been split into different groups, all working on a different skill. And the basically what happened, a boy accidentally hit the ball with the power of a 16-year-old gifted athlete, as he's actually a talented cricket player. And so he knew how to connect ball and bat. And with that, it just went in the direction that he had not intended it to. Basically, for North American listeners, it was like hitting from home plate to third base, where I was standing with another group of students. I was not looking at him, but the ball connected with the right side of my head. So doctors think probably about 80 to 90 kilometers an hour hit to the right side of my head. I knew there was something seriously wrong. My eye closed instantly. I guess I was in shock, but I knew that I needed to get the students to get help because there was something really wrong. And so from that point, I feel in many ways that I can see, like from an eagle flying over the Bavarian field, there's surrounding farms. I can see this all happening. So from that time, the next number of days, sort of in and out of consciousness, memory. I do remember getting to the hospital. I remember a doctor being very close in my face. I remember partly being driven back to my room, my apartment where I was living on a farm, alone. And so the hospital had just diagnosed me with a black eye and sent me home with two of my colleagues who took me in a car. And I remember in and out, I remember feeling like I was in a washing machine, or, just bouncing my head. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to be still and go to sleep. So basically 36 to 48 hours I was there, and not well. The pain, I felt it was not my place to question a medical professional. But something inside me just felt that there was something really, really wrong, and there was more to it than just a black eye. I had a friend coming to visit from the UK, so about 36, 48 hours, a day and a half later. And that's when, so during that in and out time, I had been very sick, vomiting, but not able to get myself to any place to vomit in the in the washroom. So it was scary. I'm not sure that scary is the right word. It was confusing because I felt like something was really wrong, but I trusted the doctors, and I felt like I need to be strong. I need to be tough. If they say it's a black eye, it's a black eye. So my friend brought me back to that same hospital where I was quickly put into an ambulance, and as soon as they saw me, and taken to a neurotrauma hospital. MRIs and extensive testing, and I had actually fractured my skull from my orbital, and my brain had been bleeding and swelling while I was at home with my black eye.
Jill, they missed all of this when you first went to the hospital right after the incident. That's right? Like, they missed it all. So they looked at you, assessed like this was just a black eye, and sent you home without doing really any evaluation to clear a significant brain head injury. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And so you go home and you have all this trust that, shoot, I just saw the doctors, right? They know better in this. And you're having these brutal days and these brutal experiences, but just kind of thinking, shoot, well, this is kind of par for the course, I guess, after being hit, but it's just a black eye. So I guess I just better go through it, right? So how scary that time frame must have been for you. And you say the word confusing. Do you feel like you were thinking coherently in this time, or just not at all?
That's a good question. Coherently, I think in my mind, I thought I was. In my mind, that was on a Wednesday, the accident happened. And that coming weekend, I was entered into a race. I was going to go to Switzerland and participate in a long distance duathlon. And in my mind, I could do that with a black eye. The headache will go away. But I thought they cleared me to go home by myself. If I can go home by myself with a black eye, I can ride a bike and I can run.
And it's such a good point to hone in on, because sometimes these traumatic brain or head injuries can leave us feeling, thinking as though we're coherently thinking, but leaving us with these underlying symptoms that, shoot, something isn't right. Like, you were picking up on that with the nausea, and your body was trying to tell you something, but such a hard spot to be in when these professionals already told you, look, you're fine. So do you hold any, we'll get into the rest of the story in a sec, but I'm curious to know, do you hold any anger for that missed call on that first visit?
None.
No, none. No. Okay, amazing. No. Let's hear more, Jill.
I feel that no one in the entire situation has ever done anything intentionally to in the know to do anything wrong. I do not. I appreciate that the doctors, the team in the emergency room, they learned something from the experience, and that's what I hope they got out of it. But I hold no anger, absolutely not.
Beautiful. And probably a lesson from our listeners is to really listen to your own body and advocate for yourself in this time, even if you feel you have to kind of break that barrier of trust and just challenge the physicians on that level. But yeah, really great points that you brought up.
I love the intuition to actually listen to your body and then seek further advice when needed and things. And I also really loved your statement about it's not your place to question a profession. And I think that is just, that's the way that our society is. But, I love that you went further and actually, then obviously were rushed directly to a resource and a facility that was able to help you.
Yeah. If my friend hadn't come, I'm not sure what would have ended up happening. I couldn't bring myself there, but nor at that time could I convince myself that I needed to go and question the doctors.
Yeah.
Just hoping to wait it out. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you talk about the traumatic brain injury. It's taken 70% of your vision. So you get admitted to this hospital, and what does the journey from there look like? This is a road to recovery. You sit before us today, such a beacon of hope. And, if you follow you or we take a look at your website, The Mountains of My Mind, absolutely stunning photography of places where you are and you are living. So tell us what happened as you went through that journey to get back to the mountains.
Well, so from the time that I was brought back to that hospital, the next actually 26 months were spent in and out of 7 different hospitals in 3 countries. So the accident was September 2014, and then December 2016, I got out of hospital. So I started in Germany about 14 months after that. I was transferred to a hospital in Canada that actually, I didn't stay very long because I was so far gone that I needed more appropriate care, or more specialized and individualized treatment. And that was available in Denver, Colorado. So 26 months, number of hospitals for the brain, for the eye, for what turned into an eating disorder. So because of the, like, all connected to the brain injury, like the comorbidity, the complexity of the brain injury just had so many, like, it's just so many complications. And as well, being a Canadian living in Germany with an insurance company that wanted to keep me in Germany, it just was really, really complicated. And it took a lot of hands and a lot of hearts to get me out of that hospital in December 2016. When I finally did, it was such a breath of fresh air, yet I felt so lost, because for all of that time, I no longer, that I was not able to live at my apartment in Germany. I no longer had my apartment. I couldn't drive anymore because of my vision. My friends had closed up my apartment and taken the few things that I had to Switzerland. My car was sold. I didn't have residency in Germany anymore because previously my employer was supporting my residency in Germany. And because I couldn't work and I was in hospital so long, that was lost as well. So when I was leaving Denver, I actually had really nowhere I felt I could go. Of course, there was friends, there was family welcoming, but I just felt really, really lost. Walking out into the world with 30% vision, when 26 months earlier, I was an active athlete, independent, autonomous, living in the Alps. And suddenly it was like a new birthday, like I was starting again. So it took some time, about 6 months till I actually started to travel. And in that time, I needed to work out some residency issues, a lot of insurance issues, banking issues, because I was alluding to, my story is really complex and I don't really tick all of the boxes, to get insurance to travel or to live. You can't just live anywhere if you don't have residency somewhere. So that was trying times, actually getting out of the hospital, although one might think, oh, it was just, huge relief and off you go. It wasn't really like that at all. It was really confusing and dark, and I didn't see any light, no light shining on a sign that said, do this, do that. But with some time, I felt that although there was no clear indication, I thought that the signs I could see were towards mountains, and that if I could for a year explore in mountains and nothing, no travel, no mountain climb could be quite as tough as what I went through, is where my head was at. And then I thought that by the time I get around 13, I had mapped out 13 different massifs around the world. And in 1 year, I thought if I can get around, and in that time, something will come up. I trusted that by that time I would have everything figured out. Maybe I'd be a little bit more accepting of my vision loss and the changes to my body, the loss of autonomy, that, in 1 year I'd be okay and off I'd go. Didn't quite work that way. And today is day 1067. So I'm coming up on 3 years of traveling.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So after that first year, I decided to keep it a little bit more open, because I've met some of the most incredible people while I travel, and I didn't want to be tied to any plane ticket or any to commit to anything where I needed to be somewhere. So since that first year, my travels have been looser And although mostly I haven't been back to South America since the first time around, the last year has been mostly between Central Europe and Nepal. And
Amazing.
yeah.
So, you talk about this road to recovery and talk about this, you stepped out of the hospital, and some people would feel relief and other people would feel the overwhelm of where am I going to look for the light? Sounds like you really went back to your roots of what you truly, truly loved, the travel, finding your light in the mountains, and really just, so many people get wrapped up in that stepping out of the hospital and think, oh my gosh, what next? But you really just went heart-centered. Is that?
Yeah. It's such a,
I like the way you said that heart-centered.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I like what you said, Megan, about heart-centered. And I also just, one of the words you used jumped out at me, and that is recover, because I'm very aware of it now, because I feel I will never, and I do not want to recover to the person that I was before. I feel that I've learned so much from this seat of adversity that, and I've grown so much as a person that I don't want to go back. And the word recover, in my mind, that means to go back to something. And I feel I want to move forward and celebrate what I can do rather than go back and reflect on what I cannot do or who I was before.
I think that's beautifully said. Absolutely beautiful, because we are never the people that we were before. We move on and we move ahead, and you have grown so much as a beautiful, beautiful wandering traveler that I think your story brings inspiration to people that you can get back to that heart-centered life that you once truly, truly loved and desired. Your passport, I can't even imagine how many stamps it has in it, but some of the greatest gifts you find is around the world and things. So I really love the way that you focus on that outside perspective.
And it's such an important point that we're really honing in on this, because after we're so-called quote unquote well from the journey that we have navigated and into this world of survivorship, stress and anxiety levels are actually often doubled from the times that we were ill or sick or navigating the journey that we were navigating. When you come out of it and there's almost this expectation, great, I should be happy, I should be well, let's go forward. But standing there lost in the middle of the world, what next step do I take? And you having that ability, I talk a lot about where we focus our energy really translates to our success, right? And you change that ability to transfer that fear in that sense of being overwhelmed and lost, and you transferred that to take that into faith in yourself. Look, everything I've been through is not as hard as climbing up those huge mountains ahead that I want to go to. So you took fear and you changed that into faith, like not necessarily a faith in a higher power, but a faith in you and a belief in yourself that you were stronger than this. And that is such an important point, that we all need to go inward and really reflect on ourselves in these moments of transition and in survivorship as we look to plow our new paths ahead. So it's so admirable as to where you've taken this, Jill. And I'm sure you can tell just by both Megan and I, we're just your biggest of fans. Tell us, what are your biggest struggles now? So what's a day in the life of Jill right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
Now is quite exceptional, I think, for the whole world, because for the last month, I have been, Kathmandu, Nepal is locked down, so we can't go out at all with the exception of going to get basic essentials at a certain time in the morning. Other than that, everything, like, we cannot go out. So these are exceptional times. So right now, I'm trying to make the most of this, of the situation, doing some fitness in the morning without running, which is, the first time in a long time, but I'm doing okay. Coming up with alternative ways to exercise, and then spending more time getting back to some writing, which the previous about 5 months, I've been in the mountains most of the time and not writing as much other than just in my handwritten journal, which I do every day. But now, like, just putting some more words into sentences and into paragraphs, and updating my website a little bit. So I've been spending some time doing that. But before that, usually a day would be early in the morning in a tea house somewhere in the Himalayas, and out hiking or running or climbing. Your question
sounds absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Now, one of the things that happens with traumatic brain injury is that it is essentially not a visually apparent condition. And so what is some tools that you have found that really help you navigate those waters when you have a condition that does, influence your daily operation?
Yeah. So you're referring to like an invisible injury?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for that, and that is one thing I really empathize, I really connect with other traumatic brain injury survivors and other conditions as well who have invisible injuries. I mean, mental health is a huge one that doesn't get spoken enough about. Mine is a little bit different because it is obvious that I have something that is what society suggests is not normal with my eye, and hence I'm wearing sunglasses 98% of the time. It's something I'm trying to work on, trying to be more comfortable with without covering, because I physically look different. I think I've just adapted. Like a common question I get is, well, how do you run? Or how do you climb when you can't see? This is all I know. I don't know any different. And I'm so thankful that I had years before of almost perfect vision. That is a gift. But from the time that my eye closed on September 3rd, at first, I had no idea, as no one did, that this was not more than a black eye that was going to come back in a few days, a few weeks, a few months. And then at 6 months, they said no. So in that time, there was definitely no accepting that after 6 months, when I was told I would not get my vision back, that was part of the cycle of acceptance. I was definitely in denial, and I went through the anger and the aggression.
How can we help our listeners that are in that similar position really, put one foot in front of the other and actually live as reasonably normal of a life as they would love to?
For me, I have found mindfulness is essential. It is bliss, living in the moment. This space that I'm in right now, being completely present all of the time. There is no space, in the life, in the continuum, for the past and for the future. The past is already gone. We can't go back. Nothing's going to change. And worrying about the future is wasting time right now. So just trying to be as present as I can all of the time is something that I strongly encourage, advocate, because, for a long time, I wasn't able to get to be present because I was so hung up on what I used to look like, what I used to be able to do, so, and I still do get caught in it, but trying to remain as present as I can now. Yeah, mindfulness and meditation has been a huge part of that.
And sorry, go ahead. On this, I wanted to raise like a really cool part of your story for our listeners that takes it back to Megan's last question, because I know from your journey and from our own conversations that, going through these brutal moments in the hospital, I had asked you, how did you find it in you to stay the course, right? And I'll never forget that answer that you shared when you were in the hospital in Denver, and you looked out and you saw those mountains and you just wanted to be back on those mountains rather than being where you were. And I really resonated with that because you and I, way back in the day, we both grew up skiing in the hills, right? Not in the mountains back home in Northern Ontario, but we were in the hills. And, through both of our journeys, and I know I said a similar thing when I was in the hospital. I said to my mom, I was raised to stand on mountains, not to be in here. And the message and what you propelled to the world is to really hold on to hope and to hold on to your passions, right? And to not let that go and let that be your guiding force. And you've lost your vision, but so much of your vision, but you see the world with so much more clarity, and you're still up there doing everything that you do. And it's just such an inspiration, Jill. So yeah.
Oh, I really love your story. I think you actually kind of brought me to tears there when you talked about being mindful and actually being present. We live in such a society that is so fast paced, that switches from one thing to another, that, allows us to not even focus on a conversation because we have notifications and text messages coming in and that type of thing. And so that power of your mind to just be present and be in the moment, it gave me chills, because I can picture you out there in some of these trails that you have, shared with us on your website. And just the strength that you find from there is really, I feel, moving myself right now.
And I just saw something on your social media about this too, about when you're hanging on a cliff on the side of a mountain, you have to be in the present, right? Like, you can't be back in what happened. Like, you're there, you're on the side of the mountain, it's you and that mountain, and you have to be right there. And so what a beautiful gift that is, that you found that.
Just going back to what Megan was saying about presence and mindfulness. And I think, this conversation that we're having right now, if I could encourage anyone else, who has been through a traumatic brain injury or any type of adversity, but this is what matters right now, and having these conversations. You don't have to go through darkness alone, and talking to other people. Put down the phone, turn off the internet. And, for me, it's being in the mountains. And I don't like to be, even though almost anywhere in the world you can be connected somehow, I choose not to be most of the time. But just to have human conversations and be present. And I just find that really ties with being mindful, being right here, right now. And, with conversations, actually talking to somebody without distractions. It's a gift.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Jill. I mean, I absolutely loved our time together and actually having the opportunity to connect with you. So what is one thing that you might be too embarrassed to tell most people? Let's lighten things up a bit here.
What's something that
you might be too embarrassed to tell most people?
What's something my language skills are terrible, but that's not really surprising.
You mean traveling to over 60 countries and you only speak English? Is that what you mean?
Pretty much. I don't know.
What about one thing that you have tried on your adventures around the world that you think everyone should try at least once?
Disconnecting in the mountains.
Being
present. Being present. Turn off your phone.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that doesn't sound like it's too difficult, but for some people, I think it is. And just,
I agree.
Connecting with Mother Nature, and that would be my recommendation.
It's so nice to be here and in the present with you right here, right now, Jill. It's just such an honor to get to do so. And, having grown up with you, and then life kind of put us both through the ringer, right? And kind of spit us out on this point. And we both don't see out of our right eyes anymore. We're both still skiing, but we're both still struggling doing so. We both get fearful of this low light, but we're both still out there having the best of times. And it's just so interesting how we find ourselves together sitting here now, right? After all that time. And I'm so excited to have you here as our very first official guest on our brand new podcast, that we're so excited to propel this message of hope and inspiration and tools to stay the course with our listeners through adversity, and to use their adversity to not deconstruct, but to recreate. And that's exactly what you have done. And you have just been a shining example of this. And we're just so happy to have had you with us.
I'm so happy. I'm humble, honored to that you found me.
So I know, Jill, that our listeners can find you at mountainsofmymind.com.
That's
They
right.
can read more about your adventures, your story. You know, you have quite a detailed timeline on there as how everything has rolled out for you and stuff. Is there any other social media platforms or any other way that they can reach and connect with you?
Sure. If you go to my website, all of the social media handles are there. I am at MTNS, or Mountains of My Mind, MTNS of My Mind on Instagram.
Awesome.
And there's a Facebook page as well, and Twitter as well. Okay. MTNS.
Okay.
MTNS at. Wait, I need to check. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's totally fine.
MTNS of My Mind. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. I encourage you to go and check out Jill's website. Like I said, there's absolutely stunning photography on there of Jill as she moves through multiple different mountain ranges. You know, even taking a look at those pictures, I feel that little bubble inside of me to be motivated and inspired. And that is truly the gift of humanity, the gift of connection. You know, this unprecedented time that we have in the world right now, this is our time to stop, connect, and like Jill really focused in on, going inward to making sure that you are being present within the moment and being really mindful about how you are spending your time.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree, Megan. And to get that body moving, everyone. So fear is physical, but courage is also very physical. And really, what do you want to train more in your body? So go out and train your body through exercise, and be more courageous, and take your boldness out in the world and go climb those mountains, and or whatever you can do. Go on the seawall for sunny seawall walks. All the best to you, our listeners, this week. And we hope that you've enjoyed this burst of inspiration, and we can't wait to see you next time. Thanks for being here.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
It's gonna be a good day. Thanks so much for joining us today. Take this inspiration forward. Learn more at risetoday.com/podcast. And please do help us in our mission to spread hope, inspiration, and positivity by encouraging those in your circle to join us and to tune in for our next show of inspiration coming soon. Please contact us if you have a powerful story to share with us to inspire the world. Until next time, get out there and rise today.